Welcome to Drop the Story. Today, I have on the show Athena Llewellyn. Thanks so much for being here.
It's an honor. Thank you, Jared.
Athena Llewellyn, the CEO and founder of Brand Aura Inc., is a trailblazer at the crossroads of storytelling and digital marketing. It enables her clients to see their greatest selves and then project it through their strategic branding. Athena's philosophy of marketing as a modern-day mythology reflects the power of marketing to sculpt our cultural landscape by authentic storytelling and elevating the voices of wisdom and mission-driven women. Here we are. Thanks again for being on the show, and I really appreciate who you are as a person because I got to witness you in your full power and authenticity this last weekend, leading a retreat of women. And that was a really inspiring thing to witness because, I saw all these people who are stepping into their power in a way that the world needs right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for being at my retreat last week. It was amazing to have your presence there and your professionalism. For those of you out there, Jared is an amazing media creator, obviously, and graced my retreat with your skills in capturing the marketing mastermind. So thank you for that.
Definitely. Yeah, the purpose of the retreat was really to, show these women that they are ready to create. They're not, so far behind in the game. There's nothing that they lack. There's nothing that, impedes them or holds them back other than their own story. So, yeah, I would really just love to hear a little bit about, coming from your career in photography and film and leading into marketing and now coaching. Where has that journey taken you and what has led you to where you are now?
Wow, well, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about something that I'm so passionate about as story, transmission, marketing, passion, purpose, right? And I guess we only have an hour, so I'll try to.
I know there's the long version, I'm sure.
There's the 12-month version.
Exactly.
That's for later. But yes, to where do we begin? You said something just now about the retreat. We just had the True Radiance Maui retreat, had 17 incredible, phenomenal women that were all in this very wide spectrum of their own careers. I had women there who own 8-figure brands. I have women there who haven't figured out their offer, and everywhere in between. And what I'm really doing with these teachings of marketing is taking them into the space of the mystery school. And the mystery school essence is always about self-actualization. And so asking everyone to take out any self-weaponry that could come up with, yesterday on our call, we created a media kit. And I said, okay, no one here is allowed to say, I'm behind. I don't even know what media outlets I would contact, PR campaign, I haven't even figured out this part. All that we're doing is taking this opportunity to further our own self-evolution and to put our photo into a template with our name and a title underneath it, because that in itself is an act of creative dignity. That in itself is an act of self-actualization. And media, when we create story, we are dignifying creativity. We're crystallizing it. So it's not about feeling like you need to be somewhere on a spectrum in order to be good enough or ready for one piece or another. It's about an inner commitment to our own creative evolution and our own creative expression, our own identity in this lifetime.
And your identity as this coach and leader didn't just happen overnight. There was definitely a journey towards that.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that there was at one point, a version of yourself that was just like the women who attended your retreat, who was unsure or maybe a little bit lost or scared to take that leap.
Of course. And every day she's there getting ready for this. I tried on a couple outfits, and there was that voice that was like, oh, girl, no, like, you're not ready. You don't look right. Like, there's always that voice. I don't know if I'll ever wake up and just like all the voices in my head are like, you're amazing.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice? So, I've surrendered to that. And like, sometimes I have a client that actually gives her a name. She's like, okay, Nancy, I hear you. Just calm down. Because that voice is always there, right? There's always the doubt within us. There's always the fear within us of being seen, of putting ourselves out there. It's a very vulnerable thing to do. It's a much safer place to stay hidden, to stay in theory, to stay just in our heads, in our ideas.
In preparation.
In preparation. And I spent years like looping in preparation, creating proposals, beautiful proposals for projects that never happened, and like, and it was kind of just its own psychic loop. And what I have found is the work is in the work. Reach out. If you don't have a paying client, find a beta client who's going to like work with you for 3 months, some kind of trade. And to just start, because we learn 95% of what we teach. And when we allow ourselves to share from the PhD program that is our lives, we realize how much experience we actually have, how much wisdom we actually have to share. And right now, in the realm of, as we're swimming in AI and, these a lot of false funhouse mirrors out there, people need people. I'm looking right in the mirror into the into the lens here, right? People need people. And so to be a person right now is the easiest and the most important, because it just means that we can be who we are in all our imperfection and still be excellent.
Yeah. Because trying to put on a facade and carry that along and try to be something that you're not, God, that's just a recipe for burnout, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is the recipe for burnout. And we've witnessed a lot of tragedy because of that. Tragedy within the influencer field of people who are projecting, an image of happiness, who commit suicide. And it's heartbreaking to think of that kind of a gap in someone's reality. And the idea that in order to be valuable, which is really what's underneath success, like, I feel like we want to be successful because we want to be valuable to the world, to the people we love, to our industry. We want to be valued. And there's this idea that in order to be valuable, we have to be perfect.
Yeah, that's something that I work on, as you mentioned before, just on the daily.
Yeah.
Yeah, because especially being in this film and photography and visual medium, where there is so much attention to a detail that takes place, and there is such a like high level of quality control and standards, that you can kind of get sucked into like thinking, oh, but this wasn't shot on the best camera, or this wasn't like the best story arc, or yada yada. It doesn't really matter what it is. You can just get so wrapped up in it and lose sight of the purpose, which is to share meaning, share value. And anytime that we get lost in all the rumination of is this even good enough, it's really robbing the rest of us of what you could be bringing to the world. So that's something that I think people really need to remember is, you mentioned in our little pre-chat the idea of a time capsule. Like what I'm offering, what I'm creating is not the end-all be-all magnum opus, of my career. It's just who I am now,
Right.
what I've learned in my PhD of life.
Yeah, exactly. And doesn't that kind of feel easy on your nervous
Totally.
system to say that? It's like, oh yeah, this is just what's alive for me right now, the tools I had, this is what I could do, and this is what I made. And across the journey of a lifetime, when that can be easy, we wind up being able to look back at all of these time capsules and witness the evolution of our own consciousness, which is a remarkable capacity that we have as a human being. The only species who has that capacity to read our journals from high school and find the golden threads that are still there. Be like, I'm still interested in this.
Yeah.
Right? So allowing our creative expressions to be easy is the gift of a lifetime. And I wish my whole life they were easy, because I suffered in perfectionism and I suffered in the contraction around what would people think and how would it be received. And it stopped me from releasing music and films and all kinds of art that is now lost, right? That computer was stolen, that hard drive crashed, like it's just gone. And I just so wish that I had that album I made on GarageBand when I was 19 years old. You know, like I would love to have that. So for anyone out there who's listening at home, just do the damn thing with what you have, where you are. It's so vital. And perfection is something that a robot can do. And it turns out there's a lot of robots out there now making, very perfect imagery. But what that all lacks is soul. And the soul's journey is the journey of redemption. It's the journey of rebirth. And it's a messy journey of breaking down and breaking through and letting go of what was not real and distilling the truth again and coming home again. And that is something that a robot can never give us. And those are the stories that stick, right? Those are the stories that we all want, are those stories of surrender, of redemption. It's why this Jesus character has really remained with us for so long, because it's the quintessential story of redemption, of resurrection. I get chills. It's ingrained in us. Like we want to know in our hearts that we can be reborn too, that we can start again, that we're not bad.
And there's something that you said about distilling the wisdom. And I think that's something that people who may not have felt ready to launch whatever it is they're trying to do in the world struggle with the most, is thinking well, out of all my life experience and all my story, what do I choose?
Mm-hmm.
How do I find the things that actually,
Yeah.
are worth telling?
Yeah.
When I was a film editor just starting out, I remember how I'd do these hour-long interviews with very inspiring individuals and not know how to edit it down and put it into a very succinct, story arc and transmission. And that takes practice. And I think that's what you help people with a lot, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And there's many stages to that. And it's a process that I refer to as brand alchemy, right? That we're alchemizing, we're distilling the essence of the values that you stand for, the stories that brought you to those values, which usually are stories about going away from that value and then realizing it's important and coming back. Again, the redemption, right? And then how that story, who you're talking to, right? Your niche. Who are you talking to? Are you talking to single mothers? Are you talking to people in the later years of their lives? Who are you talking to? And how is that resonating? How is that reflecting with where they're at? And so it's these different aspects to consider where we have to put ourselves fully in that position. So, fully in the position of the self, of really what do I value? Which is a fundamental question that we should always be leaning into. What is really important to me? Because that's what kind of a lifetime shapes. It's like you learn what really matters. That's what near-death experiences bring to people, right? Suddenly there's this instant distillation of, oh, okay, this is what really matters. I'm gonna be with my wife. I'm gonna write that book. I'm gonna surf every day. Like this is what matters. That we can come to Jesus moment of like, okay, enough with the noise. Right. So really, what matters? Right? What matters to you? And then who is it that you want to spend time with? Right? And that's my clients are like, I don't know who my niche is. I'm like, well, who do you want to hang out with? Because you're going to hang out with your clients a lot. And that helps people a lot, actually, to think like, oh, well, right, I'm a Ayurvedic chef, but actually I really want to hang out with women who are trying to conceive. Great. Now we've like created a doorway. We've created a window through which to see the world. We've created an opportunity to put a frame around your own life story. Because to try to put our whole life into one story arc is actually impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah, you would need a whole lifetime to tell it.
Exactly.
That doesn't work.
And it's confusing, right? The story arcs that we tell are very simple. And this is like a little training we can do right here.
Sure.
Right? We do a story arc that starts on the mountaintop. My name is Athena. I live in Maui with my husband and my daughter, and I run a 6-figure business doing what I love. Here I am on the mountaintop of my life. But it wasn't always like this. I remember 7 years ago, I was recently divorced from a disastrous and very brief marriage, broke, living in my friend's old barn that was so cold I used to have to wear a sweater and a hat inside, and no joke, bats would fly through it. Okay? In there, literally not knowing where I was going to go or what I was going to do, and truly feeling like the only option for me, because I had gone so far from who I thought I was and what I thought I valued, I felt like I needed to go home to God. I was like, this is an end. I'm at an end here.
Rock bottom.
It was a rock bottom. It really was. Right? And so in hearing that in my own head, I remember saying, okay, well, if I'm willing to just let it all go, then everything from here on out is just icing on the cake. And I started creating artwork that to me was just an unleashing of the most beautiful beauty I could fathom. Printing hummingbirds like this big and putting them all over the barn, and like just creating a world of beauty for me to be within, because I needed that transmission to remind me that I was still beautiful. Because sometimes we don't really feel very beautiful, right? And so I rehabilitated myself through beauty, and rehabilitated myself enough to get myself back to Brooklyn, living in a friend's apartment. And little by little, I wound up working again. I wound up working for my dream, Marianne Williamson. I became a production manager for her, and reunited with an old friend of mine named Charlie.
her husband.
And here we are today, living in Maui with this little healthy baby girl and living a life where I am holding up that mirror of beauty to so many women who feel a little broken, who don't feel beautiful, who feel like what they have is not enough. And holding up that mirror because I know what that's like to feel that way. And it's just not, it's not true.
Man, that just really speaks to the cyclic loop of depression, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just like how it can keep you stuck in that for really as long as it takes, ultimately, for you to say enough and to break free of it. And you were able to do it through art, through expression. And that reminds me of a quote my wife just told me. The opposite of depression is not happiness, it's expression.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And that's always been my revelation, right? Every shitty breakup, right? Every heartbreak, it was always taking my energy and focusing on what could I create? What beauty can I make? What poetry can relieve me of this pain, right? What can I bring forth from myself to feel alive again, right? Because my experience with depression, it feels kind of like this black lasso of dead weight, right? That's just like, ugh.
Yeah. Almost like chains weighing you
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, it's a really heavy weight. It's a really, really endless black, right? That's like, it's like petroleum. It's like an oil spill on a duck. It's so horrible to feel that, like, my wings will never work again.
Gosh, and you were printing photos of hummingbirds, which is
Yeah,
like pure joy,
exactly.
pure just unlimited possibility.
Yeah. We need to remember, like, we are that. And we have that power to shift what we're looking at, change the channel a little bit. And it's a process.
Yeah.
And it's a daily process.
And it kind of speaks to the necessity. It really does feel like a necessity to change your surroundings, change your friend group to one that is inspiring and like the version of you that you want to become.
Yeah.
Because that's a cyclic loop in itself, is to stay stuck in the same place that's not serving.
Yeah. And that's a piece that I've made very conscious decisions about in my life is who gets access to me, right? Because I'm a sensitive being. Like, as Erica Badu would say, like, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. So who has earned the right to give me feedback? Because I've received in the past, made the mistake of being like open and hearing and what everyone, and then, like, right, you hear some criticism and you're like, whoa.
Right.
So who's earned the right to be in that intimacy with me? So there's that. And then who do I want to be more like, right? We become like the 5 people we spend the most time with. So who are those 5 people? And so I've very consciously invested in coaches. I've invested in being in communities with people that inspire me, that are a few steps ahead of me in their career path, so that I don't have to feel like I'm alone, pioneering, clueless. I can be guided. And that's a whole ego death, right? To come out of, like, no one understands me and I'm so alone in the world, to just opening up a little and saying, I actually could receive some guidance. And I can receive guidance and do it in my way, in my voice, right? It doesn't mean that I'm going to sound like them, but at least I can know what the steps are that I can take to get my voice out there.
Which goes back to admitting that you're human and not an expert, and we don't need to be one. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that whole idea that you mentioned experts are being phased out or dying, so to speak, because authenticity, raw realness, like those are the things that are really giving people this experience of relatability.
Well, and honesty, right? Because what we've discovered is that experts have not been right. And especially, gosh, within the last 5 years, we've like really witnessed a disaster of leadership.
Yeah, and what happens when you blindly follow experts?
Right. And what that looks like. And we're living at a very precarious moment in the human story because we're living through a death of our former paradigm of leadership that really relied on, I'm the expert. You need to listen to me because I know better about your body. I know better about the world. I know better about these complicated things that you don't understand. And I'm here to take care of you. Right? That story, we've seen it for the charade that it actually is. So we're also living through a grief in that sense. And I think we're grieving that kind of trust that we wanted to have, right? And that we wanted to be led a little bit. It's much easier to be led. People say they want freedom, but it's actually much easier to be led, and people tend to lean into being led. But now, with this shakeup of leadership, the call is an inner call, and it's a call to source and to intuition and to understanding like our own antenna for truth. And then, as we can really feel that in our own field, in our own being, then we can start articulating that. And those become our values. Those become our mission statements. Those become the quintessential elements that are us, right? And that are unwavering in the storm. It's like, yeah, it can be a fun house out here. It can be chaos, but I'm here in this, regardless of who hates me for it, regardless of who loves me for it. This is what I'm here to deliver. And that is a power that I wish upon every heart-centered person, to remove ourselves from the codependency of validation and criticism and deeply go into the self-actualization that we're actually here to evolve into in our lifetime, of knowing our own truth, of knowing the artificial from the real, of being able to lean into that, of having that kind of sensitivity. And the reality is, and this is coming from a marketing standpoint, we are becoming more and more and more sensitive to that, right? We are more and more sensitive to feeling the energetics of a person rather than just listening to what they're saying. Right? And so the more that we wake up to that and we're given language to understand that, it's like, oh, yeah, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't sit for me. And I don't even need to include that in my 24 limited hours of my day.
Totally. Yeah, your attention is precious, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So are you going to give attention to the haters on your feed? Or are you going to, say, thank you for your process? That's not my truth.
And to just be comfortable with being visible means being projected on.
Yeah.
So if you're watching this and you're triggered, I'm flattered. Just because I'm so shiny. And
I love that.
it's true, right? And if we take a minute to look at people that we consider to be very successful, that are in the public eye, and we kind of sift through the hatred they've received, it can be overwhelming, right? And you're like, wow, well, they kept going. They didn't start to second guess themselves and go, oh my God, it's probably true. I probably am a bad person at my core and I should stop speaking and just kill myself, right? Because when you lean into validation or criticism, that's where it goes,
It's
right?
like an ultimatum.
It is. It really is. And that is so inhumane. That is so inhumane. And so we live on a polarized planet, and we've lived through cancel culture over the last 5 years, especially. And I just really call for creation culture and to spend whatever time that you have in your day towards creating. And even if that's just for your own personal evolution, actually, it should only be for your own personal evolution. And then if other people want to join you in that journey, beautiful. And if you start to figure out how you can make an offer so that they can join you in that journey, now you're in business. And it's actually very simple. And it's just about being on our journey and being willing to share it.
Yeah, there's something that you spoke to during your retreat, which was the idea of like the spiritual entrepreneur or the mystic being so afraid to come out of that closet because it's probably one of the most sensitive things that you can do is like plant a flag in the ground and say, this is what I believe. This is how I feel. This is what I know. And, you know, to kind of put a target on yourself, on your back, so to speak, and just be like, you know, screw what people say. This is who I am in the world. I'm going to take up space. That's a big statement, you know, like I'm going to take up space and you can like it or leave it. But that is something that I think, myself included in this one, a lot of people really struggle with, especially when it's like counterculture, kind of fringe ideologies, you know, where they really recognize that they're going sort of upstream in a mainstream narrative and culture. And it can feel that way, at least, because, you know, when you're in your bubble, you're within your friend group or your niche, you know, it can feel comfortable. But as soon as you think about like putting yourself out publicly, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So how did you get comfortable with that?
Being in my bubble?
No, getting out of your bubble.
Well, first, I nourish my bubble. I love my bubble. Like, I don't pop my own bubble, right? Which is something I did for a long time. I would pop my own bubble.
What does that mean?
Because I felt I didn't deserve it. To be honest with you, there was a real issue of self-worth, of accepting the gifts that I had and running away from them. So that looks like self-sabotage, right? And that looks like undermining your own nourishment. And we have neuroses like that are very prevalent in our culture. I mean, that's what an eating disorder is, right? We undermine our own nourishment because there's something in there that we feel we don't deserve, that we're lacking. So we don't, and that's like, these are deep, deep collective traumas that we've been imprinted with. So it's a big job of like shrugging them off, and it's a daily job. Like today, I'm like, I deserve to be on a podcast. I deserve to be filmed. I'm gonna do this. Like, it's okay. My hair will be what it'll be. Like it, right?
Such a process of acceptance.
It is
Constantly.
always accepting myself, right? Because there's always a part of me that's embarrassed about myself.
Or the thing that you're trying to launch, you know?
Completely.
I mentioned that quote earlier about founder of LinkedIn, saying, if you're not embarrassed about the thing that you're trying to launch, you launch too late because it's already been too developed. Like, you should have done it sooner. Like, ship it.
Yeah. And so how do we trust ourselves enough? Or how do we let go and surrender to outcome? And that's the real magic sauce. That's where success comes in. That's where fun comes in. Yeah. That's where we stop being creatively constipated, is because we don't care about the outcome. It's like, I am doing this because it brings me joy, and I'm just going to surf this joy and go for it. And that is actually the most fun, and that is the most magnetic. So it's this funny conundrum of like, oh, actually doing the thing that lets go of that outside validation is the essence of cool. That is what being cool means. It means you don't care what other people think. So to not pretend that, but to actually do that by being in creative culture, by just being on, hey, this is what I do. And it's weird. And like, I don't care if nobody else gets it, but this is what I do. And I could do it for lifetimes, right? And just geek out on it and masturbate with it and love it and just like be in it totally, fully, is so rewarding, and so how we live our vitality, right? And live that creative evolution, which I believe is the purpose of life. Like, our purpose is evolution. And evolution comes through ease and acceptance of our own progress, right? So it's like, okay, here I am today. Here I am this afternoon. Different now, too. Like, just going to keep going with this. I'm going to keep living and evolving and feeling what I'm feeling and not being ashamed of it or blame someone else for it, but just be like, oh, that's an interesting part of my experience. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. So that's what I urge every being, every person to do, is to keep going, to keep expressing, to allow yourself to just be in the pure joy of the creation. That's where innovation comes from. That's where genius lies. We talk about the genius zone. That's the genius zone, right? You are in, it's not just a flow state, it's an orgasmic state. It's like this overflow state because you've tapped into source, divine, like massive, energetic, and you become a channel for it, right? And you just give yourself over to that, and you don't need to dissect it and overthink it. You just are the vessel, and you just deliver it. So more of that. And I want to speak to something you spoke about in terms of the mystic.
Please.
And this important coming out as a mystic, right? Because we talk about coming out sexually and our gender or whatever. But there's also this mystic coming out of the closet that I've spoken with so many people that are afraid to do that. And I just want to speak with deep reverence and respect to the wound that we have for many, many, many generations around mystical understanding. Because the mystic is always ungovernable. Because the mystic is always connected to a deeper governing architecture, right? The mystic is channeling that which is unseen. And so the mystic has been persecuted for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. And if you believe in reincarnation, then you may also believe that you may have been a persecuted mystic at some point in your life.
Or persecuted others.
That wound of persecution, that wound of being, even of just being deemed unvaluable.
Let alone heretical and, blasphemous, and you're going to hell.
Exactly. Is certain death as a tribal being, right? Like, we need the community to stay alive. So those mystic, the mystic parts of us, which are our intuition, which are our gut, right? They are, yeah, they're tender, and they've experienced a lot of pain. And so when it's important that we're really tender with ourselves,
Because
right?
when we try to activate our power and potential, that gets activated too.
What
You
do you
know,
mean?
what I mean is you're trying to strive for the light.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you haven't made peace with the dark,
Mm.
you know, the pain, the suffering that you've experienced either in this life or others, then it will hold you down.
Mm.
That's what I've experienced and what I've heard a lot of spiritual teachers talk about. And so it's really about, you know, when you are striving for something, you have to alchemize constantly all the stuff that's coming to the surface, the not enoughness, the fear of attack, whatever it may be, because it's real,
Yeah.
you know? Even if nothing in your life has reflected in a physical, like tangible way, your own inner voice or inner story can still be like, don't do that. That's a threat
Mm-hmm.
to your safety.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad that you're saying that, because what I'm like, my little inner ear perks up and is thinking, yeah, nothing in our life may have threatened us in this way. However, we live in the realm of story, right? We live in a ubiquitous field of value and desire. And that field has been set forth by marketing. And it's a very intentional field. It's a very invested in field, right? Billions of dollars are invested each year to understand what will make you tick, what will make you feel like you're not enough, what will make you angry, what will keep you scrolling, what will get you riled up and get you engaged, right? And billions of dollars are invested in that. So we are living in a story that is imprinted on us. So those fears and those, sometimes they can come up and you realize this isn't mine. And that has been for me moments of epiphany and liberation. I'm like, wait a minute. This is not my agreement. I am going to renegotiate this contract because somewhere down the line I did sign off on it. And that's an important piece to remember in our sovereignty. We signed off on everything we believe in. Whether we remember that or not, we signed off, right? And so going in and saying, I no longer subscribe to the idea that I am eternally lacking. I no longer subscribe to the idea that everyone hates me. I no longer subscribe to the idea that it's unsafe to be successful. I no longer subscribe to these ideas. Right? This is powerful magic.
That's the alchemy.
Yeah, it can be alchemy, totally. I'm just being like, nope, that's not me. That's not me. We're distilling me down to my essence, down to my truth of what I am. That's Sat Nam, the true name. Like, really, what is my true name? What is the true sound that is meant to come forth from me? And can I release myself from the collective hypnosis that is culture and long enough into neutral space, and let that be through meditation or dance or lovemaking or surfing or however it happens, to consciously go into those neutral spaces so we can strengthen that connection and let that other stuff fall away. And then we become way more innately cool because, yeah, we don't subscribe to that stuff. I don't care what y'all think.
I love the idea of the more sovereign you become, the less susceptible you are to the hooks
Mm-hmm.
of marketing,
Mm-hmm.
of attention grabbing,
Yeah.
clickbait, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because you're just like, you see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not me.
Yeah.
Good try.
Exactly. Exactly. And right now, our attention is the most valuable commodity on the planet. So, again, billions of dollars invested in how to get it, how to get our attention and keep our attention. And so it has become like this Joan of Arc torch that I'm carrying of deciding to return to media and marketing, a field that I was like, it's so corrupt. It's horrible. Get me out of here. Like, I can't be in this, corrupt field
Well, you can't align with what it
with
is.
what it is.
That's not an option for you.
Right.
So, what is the option? To reinvent it.
Yeah. And that's when it gets really exciting. Yeah. So it's taken me a lifetime to get to this point where I can come back to this industry with a much more formed personality and being and say, hey, I see the bullshit here. I'm going to do this for the people that I believe in, for the values that I believe in, with all of the skills that I have in every little cell of my body that I will continue schooling myself on every day to uplift this story. And this is a story of creative abundance. Your story of lack is a lie. The truth is, creative abundance builds creative abundance. When you're around creative people, you become more creative. So let's create that story in marketing of, hey, I'm a creatively abundant person. Come into my field, become more creatively abundant.
Right? Versus the competition.
Versus is there something wrong with you? Mm-hmm. I think there is. Come into my program so I can fix you. And you be dependent on me. Right? And that is a real dark side. And that we've seen with like the guru complex, that we've seen people really succumb to feeding off of dependency. So it's so important that we become clear in ourselves of something that is creating liberty and something that's creating dependency. And really knowing the difference, because they're completely opposite, and they may have all the marketing speech to say, I'm liberating you through your dependence on me. Right? To pop that bubble. And to say, my call is like, yeah, and let's put a stake in the ground for my creative abundance, and let's build a forest together of creative abundance where we're like feeding each other. And now we've created a shared economy, a shared ecology. Like we've become our own nation in a sense, right? That we can be sovereign within ourselves. We can feed ourselves. We can take care of our children ourselves. We can do the things that are fundamental to life because we know what liberation actually is.
Everything that you just touched on really speaks to the idea of the new age. Mm-hmm. And I think, one of the big reasons that I personally shied away from coming out of that mystic closet for so long is that new age culture gets a bad rap. And for, some good reason.
Yeah.
There's some spiritual elitism and some, just unevolved nature there.
Yeah, it can be like the costuming of the same toxic hierarchy and dependency and obsession and compulsion and neuroses. I mean, I see there, that we could talk about for
So
weeks. The corruption within the system by potentially well-meaning people who have yet to truly access that point within themselves of what liberation is, and to make that conscious decision, I'm here for liberation, mine and those around me.
And what you just described as that potential, that's what I see the true new age as,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, the new earth, or I don't know, all these names they've had their kind of rusty moments. Um, but there's a longing there, right? There's a longing to be human, to be in communion, to be in community, to feed each other and raise children together and just be a human.
And to not subscribe to the way that things are just for the sake of doing it, to go along with the crowd. I think that's what takes so much courage, is to even admit to yourself, like, I want something better.
Yeah.
You know, I want something real and vital and authentic, as opposed to the list of things that I could name that we see currently.
And that's from knowing your value, your values and your value, right? Because it's both. And that's how we create value for others, which is the essence of business. You want to be in business, it's about creating value. But it comes from that of being like, wait, this is what's important to me. This right here, right? That I'm in bed at night and this is how I feel and this is what's under my roof. Like, this is what's important to me. And I value myself enough to not drag myself through the mud of confusion anymore. It's like, yeah. And that's what wisdom is. And that's what experience gives us. And I feel very powerful and very passionate about exalting feminine wisdom, lived wisdom, because we're coming off of a paradigm that is so youth obsessed. It has very conveniently silenced experience, right? When you're 18, when I was 18, like, fuck did I know? But we've made that a pillar of success, like that youth is somehow valuable.
Especially for women.
Especially for women. Especially for women. And the process that I go through with my clients of, for them to be visible in a culture that so values youth. I mean, it's like my heart is like aching with the memories that I'm having right now of being with women in that space, right? And finding ways and methods to help women be visible that make them feel beautiful, that they don't self-weaponize, right? That they're not like, oh God, I look terrible in that shot. Like, oh, just hide me away forever, right? But that they can be seen in their vitality, in their wisdom, in their experience, and that has a sex appeal to it, right? And let's honor that sex appeal. And so it's this really fundamentally important choice and process of choosing to come out of hiding, to be visible, to share the wisdom of our own lived experiences, and to know that all the voices that are saying, oh, well, if you're not successful by 22, you're a failure, like, right, all that kind of stuff, that those are poisonous hypnoses that we can pop. They're not true. And that's why I'm like on a mission to create, through Brandora Studios, to create a marketing house that is just like blazing saddles, like putting lived wisdom forefront and sexy and beautiful and like clear. because I think we're also in a culture where we're longing for maternal wisdom, and the kind of maternal wisdom that is sovereign and knows herself and is like, none of that in my house. That's not how we act. Come and sit at the table.
That's potent.
It is potent. It is potent because we've strayed. We've strayed. So that is the leadership I am calling upon. That is the leadership that I guide my clients to step into. And that's the leadership I'm stepping into.
Speaking of which, I know that you just had this amazing retreat with 18 women, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I know that you also do, extended courses or cohorts of teaching. Mm-hmm. So if someone is interested in working with you, what would you recommend to them?
Well, I would say you've made the right decision. In September, I'm going to open up the doors again to the Marketing Mystery School. And that is a 12-month program where we go deep into the inner world, right? And all of the subconscious stuff and everything that we need to do to clarify our message and feel good about being visible, to go into the external world of the strategies and the marketing realm and the language and the story and clarifying that. It's an incredible process, and we're just, the group I have now is the community itself is so beautiful, and going on this journey together. I mean, there's been so many tears and belly laughs, and just, it's a full spectrum experience of self-actualization. And so I would say reach out and get in touch, figure out how. I'm going to host a free 5-day brand accelerator. It's called Luminary. That's going to be in September. And then from there, I'm going to open up the doors to the Mystery School to join us for those 12 months, which includes so much goody goodness. The first thing it includes is we do a brand or a blueprint. So we go into your gene keys and human design and how are you particularly designed to deliver a story, right? We're all kind of a little different. So we go into that, and I have these incredible coaches who are deeply gifted in that department. We have a brand Bible. It's a 40-page template that is the backbone of our program, that you bring your origin story, your mission statement, your client archetypes, as well as your colors, your fonts, your visual language, everything into that document to really crystallize the consciousness that is a brand. Because that's a whole thing I can really geek out on.
Sure. And this has only been an hour conversation. So much more could be unraveled, I'm sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. But going into the realm of branding, to me, is the realm of the mystic. It's the ultimate realm of the mystic, because it's the realm where we become weavers of consciousness, and we become conscious enough in ourselves to do that with divine intention and to do that with excellence. So that's what I'm up to.
Amazing. Well, I so appreciate you having the time to come on the show and share your wisdom with us.
No, it's such a pleasure. I'm really honored. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you so much.
Yay.
All right, more soon.
Sounds good.